Owning your college experience is important for a number of reasons. One main reason is it's your only time that you'll have that experience. It's your only time. You know, coaches can coach for 40 years. 40 years, 4 decades. You know how many years of eligibility you get at your sport? 4. It's a huge contrast. So that means that you have got to make these years count, because you're not going to get them back. You're not going to be able to re-up after those 4 years has elapsed. So making sure that you're mindful of making the decisions that you'll be proud of once your eligibility has elapsed. And that's both in your sport and outside your sport. Owning your college experience is also important, because if you don't own it, you're susceptible to people owning it for you. People telling you what it needs to look like. People telling you that if you're not doing this in your college experience, and you're not having the right college experience, if you're not experimenting with this, if you're not doing this, then you're not doing it right. And they could do that if you don't own your own college experience and realize that it's different from person to person. If I'm being honest, you won't be able to own your college experience without doing this one thing. This one thing that a lot of people like to go over, a lot of people like to go around, a lot of people will like to ignore the elephant in the room. This one thing that if you don't do, you will get ran over. This one thing that is important, probably the most important thing ever in college. It's a muscle that goes unutilized, and today I'm going to challenge you on that. That one thing is
Hoop loudy.
That one thing is you have to be able to speak up. You have got to be able to speak up. It grinds my gears to no end when I see a student athlete that is so dependent upon their coach for everything that's going on throughout their experience, right? They don't know why they're taking whatever classes they're taking. They feel like they have an academic advisor for that. They don't know why this costs this. You know, coach can tell them that. They don't know what meal plans they should be on because coach can tell them this. They don't know where they're going to stay because coach, like, it gets to a point where you have to realize that this is your college experience. All these things need to make sense to you. And though they can give you advice, their word is just that. It's advice, because at the end of the day, you're going to be fitting the bill. At the end of the day, it's going to be you that's going to be on the hook for all these decisions that were made for you, or the decisions that you made throughout your college time. But it's very difficult to do that if you don't speak up. Now, you're 18, 19, 20 years old. It's very easy to mistake speaking up with being disrespectful. What I'm saying is you can speak up and not be disrespectful. You know, I understand that, you have elders, you have people that's older than you, and they've gone through this process. They know how this process looks. But keeping in mind that this is your experience, keeping in mind that this is your time. They're extra in that sense. They're extra. Don't get me wrong. There's certain things that you have to make sure you take care of. But if it pains you to speak up, you're going to get ran over. You're going to end up majoring in something you don't want to major in. You're going to end up hanging around with people you really don't want to hang around with. You're going to end up putting yourself in compromising situations. And people may think, well, I'll do that when I get older. There are people that's twice your age, 3 times your age, that's still not able to have that conversation. Still not able to have a conversation with someone because they're fearful that the other person may not like them, or the other person, they just don't want to be confrontational. And what I'm telling you today is this. It is good for you to exercise this muscle now, grow this muscle now, as far as being able to speak up for yourself in a civil way. You don't need to cuss anybody out. You need to raise your voice, but being able to have that conversation and mean it. Because if you don't have practice, then once you get older, you won't have that muscle already developed. But 2, people are going to run over you. You won't be in a position to negotiate deals as far as jobs in the future, negotiate your salaries in the future, because you're always going to go the road that's of least resistance. You're always going to want to do the easy thing. And it's crazy because, I've worked in universities for almost a decade now, and I see this happening over and over again. So if we even take it out the sport, right? We take it into like roommates. Some of y'all are going to have rooms. Y'all going to have residence halls, dorms, or whatnot. It will blow your mind how many times that students are not able to have a conversation with their roommate. Something as simple as cleanliness. Something as simple as the temperature that they keep on the thermostat. These are conversations that people will go up and around and loop to swoop and all. They will call their mom, to call the coach, to call the advisor, to call, when they could have just had the conversation with their roommate. This happens often, not just within the world of being a student athlete, but just being a student, just being a human being. And what I'm saying is, if you can go ahead and get practice doing this thing now, you'll save yourself a lot of grief in the long run. This video is for two things. One, you got to own your experience. Realize that you're going to be fit the bill when it's all said and done. Everybody else is just extra. Everybody else is just advisors. Everybody else can just put their input on it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be you. You need to know how all this stuff works. You need to know how much this stuff works. How much is financial aid if you're benefiting from financial aid? How much is that? How much is Pell Grant if you're benefiting from that? Right? How much is room and board? How does this money come in this way? Right? Classes. Are these classes aligned with my degree plan? When will I graduate? Will I be able to take classes over the summertime? Is that going to be paid for? Is there a way that I can get it paid for? How much is a credit hour? When's the last day I can withdraw from a class? When's the last day I can withdraw from a class and not get an F in the class? Right? Things like that. Like, you have to start thinking about it, because this is not, a lot of individuals, they think like this whole student athlete college deal is just about, I get to play the sport that I love so much, go to class, go to sleep, go to some parties, eat, sleep. Like, that's not what this is. Right? This whole thing is a business, okay? This is a business. And I don't want to suck the fun out of what you think is going to happen once you go to college, if you're not already there. But it's a business. So you need to be aware of that at all times. It's not all funs and games. It's not all kicks and giggles about you being able to play your sport. And second thing I would say is, make sure that you get practice speaking up for yourself. That doesn't mean that you need to be hostile. That doesn't mean you need to cuss anybody out. But it does mean you need to have that conversation. And understand that there's going to be some criticism that comes along with that. There's going to be some people that think that you're trying to be our dad, if it's a roommate situation and somebody's doing something that you know they're not supposed to be doing, and it can affect your time in your residence hall. So that could be the case. Or as it relates to being a student athlete and dealing with your coach, I can understand how it can be very intimidating. You got somebody that's been there and done it for decades before you even got there. Sometimes for longer than you've even been alive, and then you say, I don't want this deal. I don't want this contract. I want to be able to renegotiate some things. That can be a little intimidating. But the outcome is not even important. The outcome of if the head coach or if the coach buys into what you're saying, or if your roommate buys into what you're saying, or whomever that you're communicating with buys into what you're saying. That's not even the important part. The important part is what you develop in that process, who you become in that process. When you get these reps up, just like in the gym, you get these reps up of doing these things, it's not as difficult moving forward on having those tough conversations. And when you have those tough conversations, you're in a better position once you graduate college to have these same conversations, and it doesn't even bother you when it comes to your salary, when it comes to negotiating the deal, when it comes to negotiating just anything in life. You'll be in a better position, more so than those individuals that avoided it because it was an awkward feeling. Right? We want to press through those awkward feelings. We're not worried about that necessarily. What we're worried about is making sure we're clearly communicating what we feel like needs to be communicated, and not thinking that, oh, they're just going to understand. They're just going to, because how I was raised, that's the thing that always gets me. I said, man, why you didn't tell them that you wanted your side of the room clean or da-da-da? He said, well, how I was raised. Well, everybody wasn't raised like you. Well, it's common sense. Well, common sense ain't common to everybody, right? So having that conversation so you don't leave anything to imagination, right? Having that conversation so you don't leave anything to imagination.